might save a lot of time having those discussions before you get into the council format, which always takes longer. Formal.
Okay.
I think that's probably what I got to
mute
say.
your-
We do have one.
It's my mute, right?
Yeah, that's your mic.
Going to happen, and that is,
It's on now.
there could be another request
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
to change the EWA again to a higher amount. That is not a great solution. It will require full money from all kinds of places to do that.
As long as,
The other thing I want to say is when you send the budget across the street, if the president line item vetoes it, or line item vetoes part of it,
Is he here? Is he still up there? Nobody's over there? Okay. Oh shoot. What do you oh no. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Hello, good morning. Anybody here?
Good morning. This is Delegate Stewart. Shania.
Yeah, this is good.
Me when I speak.
Yeah.
You did
Good morning, Senate. Delegate Freeland here. Yeah. Yeah, they were. They were.
Good morning, Shananta. This is Delegate Rick Nez here. We just concluded our council teleconference that started at 7 o'clock this morning. And I believe we have enough members here, but it is currently 8:24. We'll have a roll call, please.
Good morning, committee members. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. Honorable
Good
Paul
morning,
Begay.
Delegate Key Allen, present.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. answered roll call. Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Paul Begay is present. Come on. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Morning, Delegate Freeland is here. Thank you.
Honorable Mark Freeland answered roll call. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Jamie Hino.
Jamie Hino wants the president.
Yes, Honorable Jamie Hino answered roll call. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez is present.
Honorable Rick Nez is present. Honorable Carl Slater. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.,
Present.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. answered roll call. Honorable Charlene So, Honorable Daniel So, Honorable Eugene So,
Present.
Honorable Eugene So answered roll call. Honorable Otto So, Honorable Otto So is present. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.,
Thomas Walker's present.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. answered roll call. Honorable Edison Wanika,
Here.
Honorable Edison Wanika answered roll call. Honorable Edmund Yazi, Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, Speaker Pro Temp with 10 members. Go again. Honorable Alma
Charles Newton
Begay,
is present from Ship Rock, New Mexico.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton answered roll call. Honorable Alma Begay, Honorable Nathaniel Brown, Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty, Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr., Honorable Pernell Halona, Honorable Vince James,
Delegate James is present.
Honorable Vince James answered roll call. Honorable Carl Slater,
Delegate Slater present.
Honorable Carl Slater answered roll call. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., Honorable Charlene So,
Present.
Honorable Charlene So answered roll call. Honorable Daniel So, Honorable Edmund Yazi, Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Speaker Pro Temp with 14 members present, including yourself.
I need to be unmuted. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the roll call. We do have a quorum. Shananta, Kashe, Yahakro, Nasnana, Chorizunshi, Kro, Epinda, Beha or Jigi, Jonagon Hatcho Hadosan, Shana, Honorable Daniel So. Appreciate the prayer this morning. Ado, Kashe, Yahanasnana, Dales. We move down to 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. Nanta. Do you have anyone to recognize? 2 minutes. Atenya. Okay. Ehena Shanantai. Ado Kache Nasnana. Review and adopt the agenda. Staff, could you read the agenda, please?
Mr. Pro Tem Chair, members of the committee, Naabik'íyáti Committee of the 24th Navajo Nation Council special meeting via telecommunication, Window Rock, Navajo Nation, Thursday, September 24, 2020. Proposed agenda, Presiding Chair, Honorable Seth Davis, Speaker, Navajo Nation Council. 1, call meeting to order, roll call, invocation. 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. 3, review and adopt the agenda. 4, review and adopt the journals. August 13, 2020, September 1, 2020, September 3, 2020. 5, receive reports, none. 6, old business. A, legislation 0220-20. 7, new business. A, legislation 0227-20. 8, closing of meeting, announcements, adjournment. Mr. Pro Tem Chair.
Thank you very much. And could also be hit us not. I'd like to have a motion and a second.
Motion.
Motion by
Second, Genio.
Oroso, second by Chairman Genio. So any questions? Nanta? Naidos Kiddish,
Delegate Charles Newton.
Honorable Charles Noon, you have the floor.
Yes, Telecommunications, Shanaz, Speaker Pro Tem, other colleagues, good morning. I would just like to ask that we amend the agenda to add legislation 0216-20 to the Naabik'íyáti agenda this morning, Speaker Pro Tem. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Charles Newton. One moment, please. Just one moment, Shananta. We're having a little bit of issues here.
Here you go, Shanaz.
Prepare your coffee and get ready for this meeting all day, probably till midnight, maybe. But just don't overdo your coffee here. Perhaps add some donuts to it, although it's not too healthy.
Where's a tortilla?
Chairman, Delegate Freeland, question privilege.
Okay, thank you. There's an amendment one by Honorable Charles Newton to add legislation 0216-20. Would like to have a second.
Eugene So.
Honorable Eugene So seconds that motion. Any questions? Naidos Kiddish. Mr. Tom Plateri, could you read that, sir?
Mr. Pro Tem, Chair, members of the committee, legislation 0216-20, an action relating to health, education, and human services, budget and finance, law and order, and Naabik'íyáti committees and Navajo Nation Council, extending the fund lapse exception to the annual appropriation to the Veterans Trust Fund as set forth in 12 NNC sections 1171B through Navajo Nation fiscal year 2024. Mr. Pro Tem, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Patero. Kuroshi, space Kenneth, /Naidos Kid. Any questions?
Mr. Pro Tem, Chairman, Delegate Freeland with question privilege.
Honorable Freeland.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Wanted just to ask, we do have a 10 o'clock special session, correct? So do we need to have everything on this agenda passed and voted on and approved by 10 o'clock a.m.? That's my question privilege. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Freeland, we do need to. Any other questions? Amendment 1. None? Going once? Twice? 3 times? Roll call vote, please. Stop. On Amendment 1.
Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr.
Delegate Kealan votes green.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty. Honorable Herman
Delegate Gage
M.
votes green.
Daniel. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
Henry votes green.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Eugene So.
Daniel So votes green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
I vote green. Thank you.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Otto So.
I vote green.
Honorable Otto So votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
Walker votes green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Wanika.
Green.
Honorable Edison Wanika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Elmer Begay.
I vote green. Can you hear me?
Honorable Elmer Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel
Okay.
Brown. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty. Honorable Herman M. Daniels. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Speaker Pro Temp with a vote of 17 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. Amendment 1 passes with a vote of 17 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting, motion carries. We'll go back to the main motion. Motion by Honorable Aroso, second by Honorable Jamie Henio. Any questions? Going once? Twice? 3 times? Second reading.
Mr. Chairman Pro Tem, members of Naabik'íyáti, we have one amendment. That amendment is to add legislation 0216-20 to the agenda. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Kache, Yaha, Kuro. We'll go ahead and roll call vote, please.
Honorable Elmer Begay.
I vote green.
Honorable Elmer Begay votes green. Honorable Keelan Begay Jr.
Delegate Kiala votes green.
Honorable Keelan Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
Henya votes green.
Honorable Jamie Henya votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Otto So votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
I vote green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Wanika.
Green.
Honorable Edison Wanika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty.
Good morning. This is Delegate Amber Canasba Crotty. I'm calling in from Sheep Springs, Navajo Nation. Thank you.
Honorable Crowdy, we're voting on the main motion for the agenda approval.
Thank you, Chairman Nez. This is Delegate Crotty, and I vote green. Appreciate it.
Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Eugene So.
Green.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Speaker Pro Temp with 17 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you, colleagues. We have a vote of 17 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. We just approved the main motion for the agenda here. We're down to number 4, review and adopt the journals. The journals will be from August 13, September 1st, September 3rd, 2020. And I would like to establish a motion and a second.
Motion, Wanika. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Honorable Wanika, second by Honorable Yazzie. Any questions, corrections? Going once, twice.
Pro Temp Chair, Pro Temp Speaker, Vice Chair Smith.
Honorable Smith, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Shananda. I don't Naabik'íyáti Committee Chair, Pro Temp Chair. There is a correction that needs to be made on August 13, 2020. There's, I think, a typo on the first page on the motioning, and then I concurred under that page, and it's spelt with a, I don't have it up with me, but I was looking at it last night, but that's the only correction I saw on August 13, 2020. Could that be corrected? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Smith, for recognizing that typo. It will be corrected. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Then, yeah, we'll go ahead and have a roll call vote on these journals from August 13, September 1st, and August 3. Roll call.
Honorable Elmer Begay.
I vote green.
Honorable Elmer Begay votes green. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr.
Doug Kiala votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty.
Delegate Amber Canis-Balcrotty votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Carl Slater. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable
I vote
Daniel
green.
So. Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So.
Daniel So votes green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
Oh, Dodgers, thank you.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Otto So votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
I vote green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Wanika.
Green.
Honorable Edison Wanika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
I vote green, yellow hair.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Carl Slater. Speaker Pro Temp with the vote of 17 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you very much. And we approved the journals with a vote of 17 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. Correction, Shanantai, 18 in favor with Honorable Slater's vote there. We'll move down to receive reports. There's none. Old business number 6, legislation 0220-20. Honorable Wilson Stewart is the sponsor, co-sponsor myself. So staff, could you read this legislation in for the record?
Mr. Pro Pro Tem, Chair, members of the committee, legislation 0220-20, an action relating to the Budget and Finance, Resources and Development and Naabik'íyáti Committees and Navajo Nation Council, approving the purchase of property offered for sale to the Navajo Nation by the owner of 11 D Street, Southeast Washington, D.C., approving the expenditure of fund principal of the Land Acquisition Trust Fund to the purchased property, approving the expenditure of fund principal of the Land Acquisition Trust Fund to pay for repair and renovation of the 11 D Street property. There is a committee report from the Naabik'íyáti Committee has had it under consideration and reports the same with that the legislation was not acted on due to exceeding the Naabik'íyáti Committee meeting time limit 12 a.m. September 18, 2020. The main motion is held by Honorable Edison J. Wanika, seconded by Honorable Jamie Henyo. Mr. Pro Tem Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patero, for reading the legislation in for the record. There is a motion by Honorable Edison Wanika, second by Honorable Jamie Henyo. On September 17, we ran out of time at midnight, so we will continue here today. Staff. Okay, Shanantai. Any questions, comments related to legislation here before us? 220-20.
Chairman Nez, are you asking for us to take it off the table? Can you just please explain what the action is? Thank you. This is Delegate Crotty.
Okay. Staff?
No, it wasn't tabled. It just died. We just resumed exactly at the spot where we were at. Mr. Pro Tem Chair, members of the committee, normally in the past when we've run out of time, we just start back at the point we were at because there was no tabling legislation or any action taken on this item. Mr. Pro Tem Chair.
Thank you. Are you good with that, Honorable Crotty?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Honorable Crotty. Nantai, any questions, comments?
Delegate Daniel So.
Honorable Daniel So, you have the floor, sir.
Oh, ja, even get the sneedoli. Cecilia, Speaker Pro Tem, Ado, Chair Pro Tem, excuse me, Ado, members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee. My question is, we're part of the legislation talks about accessing the principal of the Land Acquisition Trust Fund. How much is the principal now, and how much are we taking out? The other question is the Land Acquisition Fund is for obtaining properties, acres. And I think it was prioritized that it would be lands within the Eastern Navajo Agency. And this is outside the bounds of that priority. The other is, can the trust fund be used for repair and renovation? That is my question to DOJ as well as to Legislative Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair So.
Chairman Nez.
Legal counsel there? Yes, go ahead. Identify yourself.
This is Edmund, Chairman Nez.
Honorable Yasi, let me go to Department of Justice or our legal counsel first, okay?
All right, sir.
Ms. Bobroff, are you on the line?
I am on the line this morning. Good morning, everyone. Ms. Khan is works on this legislation and is more of an expert on the details than I am. So I will turn the question over to her. I also have DOJ identified that they're on the line.
Thank you, Ms. Bobroff. Ms. Khan?
Mr. Pro Tem Chair, good morning. This is Mariana Khan, Office of Legislative Counsel. There were a few questions that were asked, one having to deal with, whether there was a priority or with the expenditure of the Navajo Nation Land Acquisition Fund. And in the findings, there is reference to one of the purposes of the fund is to purchase property for commercial purposes. I'm trying to find that particular finding at this moment. As far as I read the provisions of the Land Acquisition Trust Fund, there is no priority listed. There are purposes that are listed, and one of the purposes is written here, if I can find it, having to do with economic development. To use the acreage for economic development, there is no requirement that the purchase of land be within the Navajo Nation. As far as the amount of money in the principal, I am looking for the exhibit that says that is from the controller as to the amount that's left in the fund for the principal. If Department of Justice is on the line, maybe they can locate that particular memo faster than I can. And those are the questions that I caught. And if you will give me a little time to find the quotation as to the purposes of the fund within the findings. Let's see. And of course, if Department of Justice, Mr. Robert Allen, who is primary attorney who worked on this particular land purchase arrangement, if he is on the phone, I'm perfectly willing for him to continue with answering these questions. Mr. Pro Tem Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Mr. Robert Allen, you have the floor, sir. Mr. Allen, you may have to push *6. Mr. Allen, are you on the line, sir?
Pro Tem Chair,
Yes.
this is Daniel. I'm on the line, FYI, for the record.
Noted.
I have
Daniel. Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to suggest Robert Allen actually works for the Department of Natural Resources. He's their in-house attorney. So I might recommend that you ask Department of Justice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Barbara. Anybody from the Department of Justice on the line?
Good morning, Mr. Pro Tem Chair, Mr. Pro Tem Speaker, and honorable members of council. This is Mel Rodas on the line. Was the question with regard to the balance of principal?
Honorable Chairman So, would you reiterate the question, please?
It was all impromptu questions. I don't have it written down, but the basic thought is, what is the fund principle? And this particular legislation, how much are we taking out of that fund principle? And then the aspects of the trust fund, basically, as the title says, land acquisition. So does that fund allow for repair and renovation of buildings?
Okay, thank you for repeating the question, sir. I appreciate that. Yes, it does allow for repair and renovation of the building that's being acquired. And I'm going to have to check with Mr. Robert Willie on the fund principle, but I can either ask him to get on the line or I can get back to you with his answer, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Pro Tem Chair? Mr.
Yes,
Pro
Ms.
Tem Chair, this is Mariana Khan again.
Go ahead, Ms. Khan.
I want to bring the delegate's attention to page 6 of 8, paragraph R in the findings. The findings on that particular page, I will read paragraph R. This is regarding the amount of money in the Land Acquisition Trust Fund. On May 26, 2020, the controller of the Office of the Controller advised the Division of Natural Resources that the, quote, unaudited, unreserved amount available for use in the fund balance is $165,410,942. However, 16 Novel Nation Code.
Hello, this is Robert Allen. I understand you're trying to reach me.
Mr. Allen, let me have Ms. Khan finish her statement and I'll come back to you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Allen, just to bring you update, the question was regarding, one of the questions is regarding the amount of money, the balance in the fund, the fund, and I was going to the page 6 of 8, paragraph R in the findings and reading what the controller had mentioned, written in a May 26th letter, stating that the unaudited, unreserved amount available for use in the fund balance is $167,410,942. That is what is in the principle. Mr. Pro Tem Chair, I will yield the time to Robert Allen to answer the rest of the questions.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Mr. Allen, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee, ladies and gentlemen. The comptroller, the last time she testified at RDC, she said the current principal balance of the Land Acquisition Trust Fund was $191 million. Of the amount that's budgeted, which is the fund income that was remaining before the final budget deliberations, was $533,000. So in her memo, when she's discussing this, she's saying that on the May 26th memo, at that time there was $167.4 million in the principal of the Land Acquisition Trust Fund. when RDC considered the same resolution, she said there was 191 million. Back in May, she said there was 1.3 million available for expenditure as income and budgeted. Today, when we went into our budget deliberations, there was a balance of 533,000, down from 1.344 million in the budget of the LATF for this fiscal year, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Honorable Chairman So, do you have a follow-up question, sir?
Thank you, I do. Thank you, Mr. Allen. So in how much of the principal are we going to be digging out to make this purchase? I don't recall the total appropriation that has to happen. And do we have to waive any codes to basically tap into the principal?
Mr. Allen, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. We don't have to waive any provisions of the Navajo Nation Code. However, in the Navajo Nation land acquisition regulations, the only waiver that was needed is for a inspection report. Generally, what's done is Navajo Land Department will have a preliminary inspection report and tell us the basic information about the property, where it's located, if it has any problems, the status of its title, and then we get permission to purchase the property, and we do our due diligence, including getting all the background information and doing an in-depth inspection and getting an environmental audit done. We have not been able to do that second final inspection because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our travel has been suspended. It still remains suspended by public health order and executive order. So that was the only waiver we were looking for. When it comes to dipping into the principal in this particular case, because we're so close to the end of the fiscal year, that $533,000, we had to have our RDP to draw that money down in over a week ago. There was a deadline. So we're past that deadline, and now everything is shut down, and we have to look forward. We can't do anything until next fiscal year. So the comptroller advised us that any money left, that $533,000 that's left in the budget, turns into principal of the LATF, so that goes into principal. So we're in a situation where we do have to draw down the principal because all those time deadlines at the end of the FY 2020 fiscal year have kicked in, and we're not allowed to draw any more money, despite what the regulations provide for, which is any unspent funds in the budget continue into the next fiscal year. But that's just in the regulations. The regulations are adopted by RDC. As far as Navajo Nation Code provisions, no, there's no waiver needed.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, for that. Shananta, may you all please mute your phones. Let me go to, before I go to
Mr. Pro Tem.
let me, just one moment, Ms. Khan. I would like for you to all to know that we have approximately 50 minutes before we go into our special session. So before I go to Honorable Yazi, Ms. Khan, you have the floor.
Mr. Pro Tem Chair and members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee, the question was asked as to the purpose of the Land Acquisition Fund, and on page 2 of the legislation, section 2 findings, paragraph A, refers to one of the purposes of the fund is to acquire new lands and one is to provide land necessary for approved Navajo Nation economic development. And this particular purchase would fall under that provision. Also, there is a special particular vote requirement for this particular expenditure, and it is noted on page 2, paragraph D, 16 Navajo Nation Code, section 204, with regard to expenditures of the fund principal, and that requires a 2/3 vote of the full membership of the Navajo Nation Council, and that will be required at the council session. Mr. Pro Tem Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Let me go to Honorable Edmund Yazi. You have the floor, sir.
Chairman Nez, thank you. Good morning, everyone, council, and everyone that is listening, from our staff, and then our guests via phone lines and internet. Chair, I just wanted to share a couple of things with the Land Acquisition Fund. And yesterday, the Eastern Land Commission, just for the record, resolution number ENLSC 08-20 is a resolution, and I forward this to Mr. Patero and our chief attorney. And in that resolution, colleagues, it's opposing the use of funds of the Land Acquisition Trust Fund for the purpose of repair and remodeling of the office building in Washington, D.C., and respectfully requesting and recommending that the Navajo Nation Council first consider recent resolution of the Eastern Land Commission recommending the purchase of the certain lands in conformity with the core purpose of the establishment of the Land Acquisition Trust Fund. So the trust fund was met for the usage back in July 20th, 1994. And the resolution number is CJY 5494. And that the purpose of that was to purchase land that will benefit the nation within the nation area for economic development, such as private property, or lands that are available for sale. And so it's questionable where, the purchase, I like the idea of the land, the building that we're going to purchase up in DC. Of course, it's going to save us money, but we are just dipping into a area where the intent of the Land Acquisition Fund is for land, and it's going to disturb the purpose of that bill that was passed in '94. There is a lot of property that is available that is for sale that the commission are looking at. The property that is adjacent to Route 66 in Laguna is prime property area, and that's the Chavez Ranch area. And then also there's property that is up for sale, the Lobo Ranch, Highland Meadows property, the Red Cliffs Ranch. And so this is for economic development. We made a mistake in the past, and I'm going to ask the Resource Committee, the property that's up in Colorado, it's just sitting there now. and that was approved, and and I don't want that intent of the property that we bought in Colorado, which is just sitting there, in this same result here. So my bottom point is that, my colleagues, is that the land acquisition fund is just to buy property, which will benefit the Navajo Nation. But for repairs of buildings, I find that kind of not right. And so I don't know, Chair, if we could, put this as an exhibit, the resolution, into the legislation that is here. And like I said, Chair, I ask that we add this onto the bill as an exhibit, the resolution opposing the this legislation. I reserve my time, Chair, sir.
Honorable Yazzie, staff will locate the resolution and we will provide you a response shortly, and appreciate your response, your question there as well, and concerns. Let me go to Honorable Oroso. We'll come back to your question, Honorable Yazzie.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pro Temp. What concerns me is the firm out there say it's only for Eastern Navajo. We all, as the Navajo people, contribute to the Land Acquisition Trust Fund.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was good to know where everybody's at.
Arizona, or northern New Mexico. We all contribute, all Navajos contribute to the Land Acquisition Trust Fund. And I do agree that the money funding utilized to expand the boundaries of the Navajo Nation and to expand for economic development purpose is in line. And that is one area. But I guess if the term being saying it's only for Eastern Navajo, we need to go back and amend that trust fund, because now it's becoming the term like Shishibeso. And many Arizona Navajos contribute to this trust fund that we spend, even in northern New Mexico, Shiprock, Northern Navajo, Chinle, Western. Ani ta'eko hot ego peso pitahi ni lako aro o shishi peso data no sin. It's the Navajo people's money in general. That's the way I see it. And alcohol, Ashton ko benan o di peso kaya benahi ni niki e besh mahasa anya tapang sila aron da le de kaya na ni hikish ash bohnetza ash biga ko da nal ito da e kona ste do kaya hikinel i adon da baben na chitine na pahili do baben na che e ya apo honet zahoto ni ka aya ni hinan at na je Mr. Jonathan Nez haji kachi lala ato bishma has an babet khanna eta asi ben hilchohot ni hilaja aja ata yiche ata ista. And I believe that document is probably in June. ita e ochin nego hati o ba yatki. Nde ita nila ko de kid in the bishma sa anni tlani ben hi khonne. Ko e ka ashtish ado bohnet zane bohnet zansen khashit lashin so kaya na ni hiki akon na alta na khafik arosh laj na ani de kushin na khafik akon na alta the never Washington khat ishi ni yela la na nzin nikin le ke na halka has ago ate ho wando aye ho wa bache delta di ban hije na hot di ego ko ba hajo na hajo na che ya in de kaido le ta no hot ko na halta hashine na ya peso hechos ni ya na khafik rental the rent in the haliego aron the nabalache Bishma has andi nini don the leadership if there's room in that building for leadership to spend the night there, that is very economical. Because going to Washington D.C. to stay in Washington D.C. for one night is expensive. Kadne zatin doi which bohi naho ad hune la bahille. Eshin na yanda tikion not ani kont na halta yo ne bahilleni banna ako ashik bohnet za nilede was now Washington office elia to khshte koche khashne na it never Washington e khai be peso e chose e hot na halta ko benal ego ko don da yalcho ego abelt ensen bohnet za ako ba nash ego ko ohonet zagansen ade keya hagi gashin sago ya ade ndahidilne ohonet za ade khalchin has khado dilnishka never Washington ya dilnish aronda bench ege ya dide we're going to have to go back in to amend the Land Acquisition Trust Fund to take out any language that sort of speaks to ownership. All Navajo people throughout the Navajo Nation contributes to the Land Acquisition Trust Fund. And I think it's time that we have to move forth on that and move to amend that so that we're not stepping on things saying it's mine. I believe the intent to make this development of this Land Acquisition Trust Fund was to expand the boundaries of the Navajo Nation. Let's do away with the trust fund and let's deposit it into the general funds. Never Washington.
Honorable Araso, Bahainziki, Arashin Krok Adnat. We'll go back to Honorable Edmund Yazi's questions. Let me go to staff here. Mr. Otero. Okay. I think we're still waiting from Legislative Council to have a response for Honorable Yazi. I don't see anybody in the queue. Please identify yourself.
Freeland.
Eugene So.
Okay. Well, let me go to Honorable Freeland first, and then Honorable Eugene So will be after. Honorable Freeland, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Pro Tem. I thought you were going to say Eugene So Freeland. I didn't know we had a new delegate. Good morning. I wanted to, first of all, thank everyone on this discussion. I think it's a real important discussion, and I appreciate my Che and Honorable Yazi's concerns and questions. Like myself, I do have concerns And I appreciate, my brother, what he just mentioned, Honorable So. I think I don't think as delegates, especially, we want to continue to advocate for our areas. And as Eastern delegates, we have a real challenge in our area, unlike no other on trust side. And we're not claiming ownership. We're not claiming anything like that. What we're wanting to do is expand and gain some new lands for our people out there. Eastern Navajo has always been at a real disadvantage, and we continue to be at a real disadvantage. And, because of the checkerboard status, we have 18 different land statuses that we have to deal with when our people are trying to get utility hookups, or we're trying to get rights of ways for power lines or water lines. When we cross federal lands, at BLM or allotments, it takes forever. And if we're able to gain any sort of assistance by land acquisition, that will help in obtaining rights of ways a lot sooner. And the BLM has a real strong grip on our lands out there, and 18 different land statuses, Shanata. And looking at the amendment that was made, there was an amendment made by the 23rd Council, and it was sponsored by Honorable Alton Shepard. The resolution that he sponsored, or he amended, on the Land Acquisition Fund is CAU-44-16. And the first part on page 3, I believe, really, it strikes out Eastern Navajo. It strikes out a lot of the language related to Eastern Navajo. But going down to Title 16 on page 6 of 11, Chapter 1, Navajo Nation Acquisition Lands Act. It states the establishment. The Navajo Nation Land Acquisition Act is hereby established, which governs acquisitions and disposals of Navajo Nation real property. Major purpose: A, the Navajo Nation's major purposes in acquiring new land shall be, number 1, consolidate Indian holdings in checkerboard areas wherever the best interests of the Navajos residing in that area and the welfare of the Navajo Nation are served thereby. Number 2, provide grazing lands for members of the Navajo Nation who do not have grazing permits. Number 3, provide an additional or substitute lands for members of the Navajo Nation who reside in overcrowded areas of the reservation. Number 4, I lost it here. Relieve reservation land resources from excessive use. And number 5, I think this is what Ms. Khan was referring to, is provide land necessary for approved Navajo Nation economic development. On this amendment, nowhere does it refer to Eastern Navajo, but on number 1, it does say consolidate Indian holdings in checkerboard areas. We have a lot of checkerboards in Eastern Navajo. There's also checkerboards in the Winslow tract. There's a lot of checkerboards down in that area that we could look at obtaining. There's also checkerboards in Utah as well. So it pertains to areas in both 3 states, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah. But because Eastern has the largest holdings of checkerboard, we need some help. We need some real help. Our people need help out there too, just like anywhere else. So I want to mention that, as far as the concerns, if anything, it's not just about Eastern, yes, but it's about everywhere else. But because Eastern does have the largest majority of checkerboard components within the Navajo Nation, that's why we're real focused as Eastern delegates. Help us out, help us, help our people in Eastern too. Our people count as much as everywhere else on the Navajo Nation, and that's real important. And I said this before, Navajo is Navajo regardless. And, we need to help them out. Ojo Baya, I have one chapter official, one chapter official. He lives on BLM land because the land was surveyed wrong. He does not have running water. He's a Vietnam vet. He's raising his grandkids. His son passed away. And when you go and visit him, he hauls water. He has water barrels outside. How can we help people like that out in our area, Chantal? So I really ask and plead with you to completely understand. Let's work together and figure out a solution, because our area, like Chairman Yazi mentioned, we've submitted resolutions for requests for acquiring lands out there. What he brought up, the Chavez Ranch. If we don't buy that, if we don't move on that property, Tuajule is going to get landlocked by Laguna. And then Laguna is going to be completely surrounded Tuajule. And they're going to be landlocked. So in instances like that, we have a real opportunity for the Red Cliffs Ranch, a Yambato chapter. So there are real properties out there that we could obtain, but we need some help too. I wanted to mention that, Chairman. Thank you. I had too much coffee, and I apologize for taking up too much time. Thank you.
Honorable Freeland, thank you for your comments. And let me go back to Honorable Yazi's resolution. We do have it, and it was emailed to the 24th Council. Staff, Mr. Patero, could you comment, sir?
Mr. Pro Tem Chair, members of the committee, Delegate Gazi wants to make this resolution an attachment to the exhibit. We've sent an email to Office of Legislative Counsel to prepare the language so it can be added in as an exhibit. Mr. Pro Tem Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Patero. It'll be added as an exhibit to the legislation. We'll move down the queue. We have Honorable Eugene. You have the floor.
Mr. Pro Tem Chair.
Yes, Ms. Khan.
To attach this as an exhibit, it needs a vote of the committee. And I have prepared some language as an amendment for this legislation. However, I'd like to point out that any opposition that it comes in from the public is usually placed with the legislation as comment from the public during the public comment period. All that comes in and is distributed to the delegates when they are considering the legislation. We don't usually put it in as an exhibit to the body of the legislation. In this particular situation, this is not would not be considered a supporting statement and not be considered as a supporting exhibit. It is contrary to the purpose of this legislation, and which makes it I can put language in with regard to this particular request, but I do want the delegate to know that this amendment, to add it as an exhibit, does not go with the purpose of this legislation. And having said that, where it would go, I will send the language, a particular part of the findings, stating that the Eastern Navajo Land Commission resolution is attached, and in parentheses, I put in that the commission has stated it is against the use of the. It is stating its opposition to the use of the Land Acquisition Trust Fund for the property in question. As I point out, this type of an exhibit does not conform to the purpose of the legislation, in that it is against the purpose of the legislation. Those usually come as the public comment documents that are attached to the legislation that go to the delegates and the public, so that the delegates know, have an idea of the opinions of the Navajo Nation when they are voting on it. But I'm ready to send this out to you all. And any amendment to the body of the legislation requires a vote, Mr. Pro Tem Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khan, for that. Honorable Yasi, what we will do with this resolution from Eastern Navajo Land Commission will be added to the comments of the legislation. So, Honorable Yasi. Next.
Pro Temp Chair. Pro
Yes,
Temp
sir.
Chair, this is Vice Chair Smith. I got a question of privilege.
Honorable Vice Chair Smith, what is your question of privilege, sir?
This would be to the Legislative Council or Department of Justice. The question is, would this be a conflict of interest regarding what is being discussed on behalf of the Land Acquisition Trust Fund purchase? That's my question, because we have signature and just want to see if that is not a conflict. Shananda, thank you.
Thank you for your question of privilege, Honorable Vice Chair Smith. Ms. Barbara, may you answer the question, please?
I apologize because, of course, my call failed right when the question was being raised. Please restate it.
Honorable Vice Chair Smith, please restate your question, sir.
Thank you again, Pro Temp Chair. On this question that I'm asking is that this Eastern Land Board Commission Resolution ENLSRCS-08-20, is that a conflict of interest based off the action that was taking place? Is that a conflict? That's my question.
Ms. Barbara?
Thank you. I don't identify a conflict as far as conflicts, as you know, are pretty much confined to personal interests, personal economic interests. I'm not identifying one here. But if factually I've missed something, that may change my analysis. But no, I don't think it's like a conflict of interest. Wow, I got a lot of static coming back. Thank you. But as far as it being different than the purpose of the legislation, I don't think that that's a conflict. That's just a different opinion. So I don't think it destroys anything about the legislation. There's two options that could be pursued. One, as Ms. Khan was talking about, the exhibit could be included in the body of the legislation. That would have to be done through motion. If that's not a preferred course, it could be added to the comments. It would come in as a negative comment or, a opposing comment. But the one thing about the comments is that after the legislation is finalized, the comments are no longer attached. So 4 years from now, when you look at the legislation, you don't get the comments. So I hope that answers the question, Chair Pro Tem and Vice Chair Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barbara. Let me go to Honorable Eugene So, who's on the queue now. You have the floor, sir.
Pro Temp Rick, Honorable. that's that's Queenie, that's in Washington, that's in Washington, that's no. So, regards to DK, any bad. Let's all on the economic development, even the Yakaya, Nahani Sawali. Mission now, in regards to mission now, reservation is getting a little bit bigger. Migration lead agency wise. So the network that had the strategical. My maybe I can talk to Dana about this later on, but my comment is that the Chipra, City, Ganado, St. Michael, Fortified, Navajo, Delcon, Loop, Prom Point, Chinle, and others that are developing business-wise. Because of the communities, those are the treaty, and in those areas that I mentioned, I think we should buy land for business to include them in this fund where we can buy land for grazing, like any grazing, that way we can relocate those people in this area where we want economic development to grow, especially Ganado areas. Don't let Tuba City, don't let Chinle, don't let mini farm areas where we need a lot of economic, where we can get more money out of based on based up in the get the people relocated that are living in that area. Even yet, so this case, a Colorado that also we should put a legislation on where we can do some regulation on it. Grazing, because to grazing, and maybe where they're going to be living at. I think we need to start thinking that way. Otherwise, it all make regards to land issues. So even now, I think I might have, but I will talk to Dana regards to this issue that we need to start doing this because we need money. We need economic development. We're just talking about a while ago how we're going to get some more money. So even now, I think that's the way the route goes. What on these articles, what they take all this, the net. I saw it, but no, they need cow. They need eminent domain. That no, that's a Western law, not for private land. That's how I understand it by layman's term. So even now, this case in So me, I want to maybe sit down with Dana and see if we can find out a way we can legislate this back and give it back to you guys, council delegate, where we need development, economic development. These money should be for those people that we're going to relocate off the reservation and get them a ranch somewhere. Because I have on this case, colleagues, that's not something. So open that case, that I don't get that can legislative service speakers, but it needs to be replaced. I was really unsafe for the delegates, those staff that undergone that. But I had to be hunter virus. I don't want that. It's almost as bad as corona. A lot of buildings here in this reservation needs to be repaired. So why repair something that's in Washington when we had to repair first? Let's clean our house first before we go out and try to do something. We solve the open this case. So with that, pro temp speaker, it's sad for the time that you allowed me on this. I really wanted to get this off my chest because city agency is so small and other agencies are getting bigger. And we need to do some development, economic development in the areas where like Shippa, Tuba City, Granada, St. Michael, 4 to 5, Navajo, Delcon, Loop, Prom Point, Chinle, and other areas where it's, considered real good development areas. The road, 264, 191, that's a, because get up to Shippa, that's any, a call. The economic that anyway, we can start relocating them for some of the ranches that we can buy with this land, with this funds. So I got this case, so I guess I want to go that route. I don't share it. Thank you.
Yeah, Honorable Eugene So, Hotaba Heinzi, Dekoro, legislation, land acquisition, Kindanhalkere, Nanigi. Aro, is there anybody? I don't see anybody in the queue. Anybody would like to comment or any questions? Naidos Kirishnanda. Going once?
Mr. Chairman, this is Robert Allen from the Division of Natural Resources.
Mr. Allen?
I'd like to point out that at Section 7C of our land acquisition regulations, or Section 7A, says the land acquisition trust fund shall be used to compensate land users for exercise of eminent domain by the Navajo Nation pursuant to 16 NNC Sections 1401 through 3. We put that in there to kind of flesh out number 5 in the major purposes of the Land Acquisition Act amendments. In addition to that, before we had these amendments, just for everybody's information, when all the land acquisitions had to be approved by council, we did buy businesses and property with the land acquisition fund, which included funds for repairs, renovation, furniture, fixtures, equipment, inventory, and there was money appropriated to procure a license where a franchise was involved. And that was all under economic development, just for everyone's information.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, for referring to that section of the code for land acquisition and making some clarifications on it. Honorable members of the 24th Council, any questions, comments?
Pro Temp Chair, this is Vice Chair Smith.
Honorable Vice Chair Smith, you have the floor, sir.
So thank you again, Pro Temp Chair, and also the 24th Nation Naabik'íyáti Committee, and those that are listening. My question goes out to any land purchases, which is an investment. Within that investment, the acquisition of the land, has all the property taxes been paid up to date? That's important to be aware of. If the taxes aren't paid up, then whoever purchased the land will have to pay for the taxes, any fees, any payments that are not kept up by the owner. But that's important to also know. And
you can work with the sponsor and can direct you in which way they want.
I heard Mr. Robert Allen saying that the language in the law has been changed. And within that, is that law also covering property taxes or any unknown fees, hidden fees that may be not provided during the time of the sale, but later on disclosed? That's a question I have, Pro Temp Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Smith, for your question related to the property taxes to be paid to date. Let me go back to the sponsor and he can appoint somebody to answer your question, sir. Honorable Stewart.
Good morning, Sinai. So Best Glenigi, colleagues and Glenigi, Naabik'íyáti meeting, Yeto Kona, he not put out, not NDK, Lenigi, or Kodogi Aya, the Kata, the aviation now, Mr. Mike Colonna, Auto in the Santi Louis of Washington, Dangi, not the Shigi A. Sto, Kodo listening, Don that Mr. Robert Allen, a Sto, or Kotashi, Nando Kidigi, Ashi Kwagi, Bangladesh, Auto Lake. Shana, Mr. Halona, Kwagi, Shikan, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Halona, we have 8 minutes. Mr. Halona, you have the floor. Mr. Halona, you may have to push *6 to unmute.
Good morning. Yate,
Yes, go ahead. You have the floor, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Yate, Pro Temp Speaker, Delegate Stewart, and honorable members of the 24th Tribal Council. Yate, Hidinito, Ado Mike Colon and Shenley, Twatch, or Yeda, Nasha, Ado did never care about how you job get that's the English out there. I don't know, Nancy, but I'm in Slanshim, but it's chin, poor, and the nationality on the shape. What I Nancy, I say, are they not Kidito, Sabbat, I saw Ziggy, Dick, a Dick, Kaya Nahadon, Nini, Echo, Dani, Katie, ya, principal, don't pay so had that deed so. Been nigh, but then the clean peso. I've been yes in the land. I thought chose it in FY 2020. Been it quite at one date. I don't chose it. Don't understand the lotion. Yeah, I thought and I see name that. I thought that area don't like that. Ako what I don't be not on it. Oh, to office building. Other shop. Don't like investment. Right, meaning. You could not pay so hard on the stock which on go next. I don't not a quite to I don't let you don't know in the city ho once. I don't like investment or yeah, I know how to read. I know how they kiss on this, but based on Argent need they equity they been data list. There's no go cadet or need to say I don't. The national band died on all the peso. Could hard so much Argent the north. At the net investment. I call what I call how the question out that kitty day. The NACOS regulation there, 2016, they were Delegate Freeland, holding it. I call Eastern Agency, Halate, no. Okay, I need that. What happened this season is 45,000 acres with New Mexico State with exchange area. November 2019, that's called that area. I call what happened there, Nishindi. I con the 45,000 acres. I said, land in the show out on the Sassan. Rigi don't how been on how been not that there, nation, you thought, state. Ako what yago. Ako end on so case. Kaya hagi state lands you don't need exchange they done. Ako the off reservation peso do chudo insta ninigi. Le hard the kaya hagi kedo sha. Era te don't neta. The gato nigi da te do nita. Bini nani do tadadi nini di off reservation purchase nini ako eban so case BLM off and on it but kada need on there Delegate-íyáti but spasm but his ya ha kago crash get in a hot on get such a cut bini nani ya did yatadi no jod atais nah ado atsada Ako det ben not on national ba hot akon de sto honan it exchange dan. Hard kaya things in has ne o det ben not exchange it all ne. Ako what akon de hot na kon keta hat any ka keta hat any state land so BLM land. Ka hat any lease ba de liago te. Ako di kwaya hadne ikis Delegate Friedland Edo Spahazanda. So honi BLM bani kata residential lease ba ose benin na che kopja to plus jo what ako dia tahto benada tel nisha BLM tahto besa besla na de klita in klare to stand. Ako to what a hot Ako aja Eastern Land Commission what ayen that was nation dan that's been yani nilin dan what la ako di kodo biga bisla hanan leho fit to ni se kui kaya it's not to nilgi ha na not jo but ado edikaya tribal ranches also in the big bull 757,000 acres. Also, Elkins Ranch, Bluebird Ranch. I mean, the ranch over in Blue Hill, Berry Hill Ranch. That's nice. Okay, yeah, Department of Agriculture Ranch Program. That is in. Creation to dash in Zinige, but what at least 5,000 net. Hanet not know kaho what bahazan akonde ya at least it la what ado yati Colorado Ranch but how see also ne so also ada cho and cut ada achimpe kashiban nata hanni so ayan ba nata hanni Ado as question not a hot clado, I think other mental peso ya nante after peso does in short days. Oh,
one more minute, Mr. Halona. We have 1 minute.
Ako di relocating people to ranches. Hat ninigi yeah. Hard is AI sit what asa nan. I don't do taxes, but how the taxes, what any regulation, yeah, based on your own agenda. I could only ship again, tribal ranches, what I just up what I in that Nippon Nani, Archer that was in English and Arjun that what I could do not. Mr.
Halona.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then that time expired for Naabik'íyáti committee meeting, and therefore we're going to reset all the equipment. And honorable members of the 24th Council, please call back in about 10 to 15 minutes for our 24th Navajo Nation Council special session. So time has expired. What is
Question of privilege?
Question of privilege, Madam Chair, Charles Noon.
Yes, Speaker Pro Tem, we have legislation 0216-20. It expires on September 30th. This is for the veterans housing. This was the one that was added on to today's agenda. Can you please provide me some guidance on how we can proceed forward to hear this at NABI? Because the point of getting it onto NABI's agenda today was so that we could address this at council today, at special council. If we don't address it by September 30th, the Veterans Housing Fund goes away.
Thank you, Honorable Charles Newton. We have to have another schedule Naabik'íyáti in order to go back on there. So time has expired, so please call back in 10 to 15 minutes.
Point of order, Delegate James. Point of order, Delegate James.
Delegate James, what is your point of order? We ran out of time, but I'll recognize your point of order.
My point of order is where in the law does it state that we ran out of time? I thought our run out of time was at midnight for Naabik'íyáti meeting. Thank you, Pro Tem Speaker. If I can get legal counsel advice, thanks.
Ms. Barbara, respond, please.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. I'm not sure of that last question, but as far as ending the Nabi meeting to go into council, that is at the discretion of the chair. It does not necessarily automatically end until the agenda items have been dealt with, or somebody has requested a recess or an adjournment. An adjournment. Could the very last question be repeated? I seem to have a bad connection today.
Thank you, Dana.
Point of privilege.
Sunanta, one moment. Let me have staff here look up the codes to the point of order raised by Honorable Vince James. Let me go to Honorable Smith. Was that you?
Pro Tem Chair?
Chair Pro Tem.
He wasn't now.
Legislator, question privilege.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Can you review or have the Office of Legislative Services review the legislative history for the DC acquisition? And I'm trying to determine what our options are with respect to tabling or considering discussion. I think it's critical that we move on to Delegate Charles Newton's legislation as soon as possible before we move on to the full council special session.
One moment, Honorable Slater, for that. Let me go back to page 11 of F. Our meetings, no committee or commission meeting shall be held while the Navajo Nation Council is in special or regular session, except to consider a matter which is already a part of the agenda for the council session, then in progress, and for which committee or commission action is a legal condition precedent to action by the council. So, Shanantai, Kuro, Honorable Vince James, Banadan, Kiriki, Kwagi, Hut Abakagi, Eyaha, Hut Dida, Kuchin, Nita, or Kik Areyaha, deschedule, approve Ilyagi, special meeting. Naabik'íyáti has canceled, so we're going to have to go into a 10 to 15 minute break. Then we'll go into our special session. Honorable Slater, Banadan, Kiriki. Could you answer that question?
I think you wanted the history on.
One moment, Altlota. Ms. Barbara?
Chair Pro Tem, I have another question of privilege.
Okay, Ms. Barbara, would you respond to Honorable Slater's concerns? Before you answer that.
Speaker.
Go ahead, Honorable Slater.
Thank you. I guess my understanding of in session is that a proposed agenda or session doesn't mean that we've actually engaged in the session yet. And so when the special or regular council session is set to take place, we would have to have quorum and an agenda approved and all of that in order to be called into order.
And my interpretation of what Ms. Bobroff explained was that therefore it's at the chair's discretion on whether to adjourn or recess the meeting. And then the first concern that I had was what the legislative history is for this legislation so that we can make sure it doesn't die, but we also move on to the veterans legislation. Thank you, Chair Pro Tem.
Thank you, Honorable Slater. Ms. Barbara, may you respond, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Based on precedent, it has not been determined that a session starts until, actually, as Delegate Slater has said, that the agenda is you have a quorum, the agenda is ready, etc. Although this council has been very good at starting its sessions timely, historically that's not been the case. There has been delays for meetings scheduled before the council council session was started to get done with their business. So I don't believe you would be in violation of 183F, which Chair you read, if you continued to address or finish up some of your NABI agenda items as you wish to do, and then started the session. As far as the question about the current legislation, I believe this is its first time at NABI. I hope somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but if it is its first time at NABI, it gets tabled, it will move on to the next to the council session automatically because of its tabling. So you have that situation. As far as Delegate Charles Newton's legislations for the Veterans Trust, it needs to be heard at NABI before it can move on to council. So if it's not heard today, there will have to be both a NABI meeting called and then another special session. Chair, thank you very much. Excuse me, Speaker Pro Tem, thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Ms. Bobroff. Honorable Slater, Speaker. You're good with that? Honorable Slater?
Oh.
Go, Sheila. Call back in, honorable colleagues, in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hello? Oh, geez.